artificial intelligence did not emerge from nowhere. It emerged from a lineage. And at the center of that lineage are black minds, African minds, whose brilliance was foundational, structural, and deliberately obscured. David Blackwell was not building chatbots or neural networks. He was doing something far more fundamental. He was formalizing the mathematics of decision itself. He was answering the question every intelligence must answer. How does an entity choose when the world is uncertain? How does one act without full knowledge? How does one update truth as new information arrives? Long before machine learning became a phrase, Blackwell was constructing the logic that allows learning to exist. Probability, decision theory, optimal strategy, information quality. These are not accessories to artificial intelligence. They are its skeleton. When an AI evaluates options, when it weighs outcomes, when it decides one action is better than another, given incomplete data, it is walking along paths Blackwell helped clear. His work made it possible for machines to behave rationally under uncertainty. That is not a small contribution. That is the mind of AI itself. And yet, his name is absent from most AI histories, footnoted at best, erased at worst. Not because his work was minor, but because his presence disrupts the mythology of where intelligence is supposed to come from. Gladys Mae West was shaping something equally essential, though in a different dimension. While Blackwell dealt with abstraction, West dealt with reality itself, its curvature, its shape, its measurable form. She helped mathematically model the Earth so precisely that satellites could speak to it. GPS is not simply a convenience. It is spatial intelligence. It is how machines know where they are. Without that knowledge, intelligence cannot act. A self-driving car without location is blind. A drone without coordinates is lost. A global system without mapping collapses into noise. West's mathematics gave the digital world a body. Blackwell gave it a mind. And both were erased from the dominant narrative while their work became invisible infrastructure, used constantly, acknowledged rarely. This pattern is not accidental. It is ancient. Because long before Blackwell formalized decision theory, African systems of intelligence had already been grappling with uncertainty, choice, probability, and optimal action. Ifar is not folklore. It is not superstition. It is a complex, recursive decision system built on binary logic, combinatorics, memory, and pattern recognition. 16 primary signs unfolding into 256 possible states, each associated with narratives, probabilities, ethical constraints, and prescribed actions. This is not mystical in the childish sense. It is mystical in the sense that mathematics once was, sacred because it worked. Ifar does not claim omniscience. It assumes uncertainty. That is key. It does not promise perfect knowledge. It offers structured guidance in an unpredictable world. That is the same problem AI attempts to solve. How do you choose when outcomes are unclear? How do you act without full information? How do you update understanding as new data appears? Blackwell's equations answer these questions formally. Ifar answers them symbolically. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is language. The Lukasa memory boards of Central Africa functioned as external cognition, physical interfaces for encoding vast amounts of historical, social, and procedural knowledge. They were not art objects. They were databases. They were mnemonic architectures that allowed trained users to retrieve layered information non-linearly, guided by touch, symbol, and spatial arrangement. Modern AI researchers call this embodied cognition and external memory systems. Africans were doing it centuries ago, without electricity, without silicon, without needing to justify it to anyone. The Dogon star maps encoded astronomical knowledge that still unsettles modern astrophysics, not because Africans were magically omniscient, but because they observed patiently, preserved knowledge collectively, and transmitted it through symbolic systems that prioritized continuity over spectacle. Intelligence, in these traditions, was not about domination. It was about alignment. Knowing when to act mattered more than acting fast. Knowing where you were in the cycle mattered more than novelty. This is the African epistemology that produced Blackwell and West, not by accident, not as anomalies, but as descendants of a civilizational orientation toward pattern, probability, and place.
Later manufacturers rely on one hidden trick to make sure you never stop buying
When Blackwell chose Howard University, he was not retreating from excellence. He was practicing continuity. He was planting advanced mathematics inside a black institution, refusing to let brilliance be siphoned away and rebranded. When West quietly refined equations that now guide billions of people daily, she was not seeking visibility. She was building infrastructure. African intelligence has always favored function over fame. The modern AI industry markets itself as unprecedented, but it is deeply derivative. It borrows African logic while denying African lineage. It uses probability while mocking divination. It builds memory systems while dismissing oral tradition. It worships optimization while pretending African systems were irrational. This contradiction is not ignorance, it is strategy. Because if intelligence is acknowledged as African, then the hierarchy collapses. Then the story changes from catching up to remembering, from innovation to reclamation. Artificial intelligence is not the birth of intelligence. It is the return of questions humanity has always asked. How to choose, how to know, how to act, how to remember. The tragedy is not that Africans were excluded from AI. The tragedy is that AI was never separated from African thought to begin with. The separation was imposed after the fact. David Blackwell did not invent African intelligence. He translated it into equations the modern world could not ignore. Gladys West did not discover space. She mapped reality with a precision her ancestors would have recognized instantly. They are not exceptions. They are proof. And now the irony is complete. Machines built on African logic are being trained to rediscover patterns Africans encoded long ago. Algorithms circle back toward wisdom they once dismissed. AI speaks of emergence, recursion, learning, feedback loops, words that echo ideas Africa never abandoned. So when they say AI is the future, understand this clearly. It is also the past resurfacing. It is memory fighting erasure. It is structure reasserting itself beneath myth. They erased the names, but not the work. They buried the lineage, but not the logic. And now the world runs on systems that pretends came from nowhere. But nothing comes from nowhere. Not intelligence, not memory, not us. What makes this moment different is not that machines are becoming intelligent, but that humanity is being forced to confront what it has always misunderstood about intelligence itself. For centuries, intelligence was framed as domination, control over nature, speed over wisdom, extraction over balance. African systems never defined intelligence that way. Intelligence was measured by alignment, timing, memory, and restraint. Knowing when not to act mattered as much as knowing when to act. Knowledge was sacred because it shaped life, not because it dazzled. Artificial intelligence, for all its claims of novelty, is quietly circling back to this older understanding. Its most powerful systems do not succeed through certainty, but through probability. They learn, revise, assign confidence, and adapt. This is not a revolution. It is a return. African epistemologies always treated uncertainty as permanent and wisdom as adaptive. Ifa never promised omniscience. It offered structured guidance in an unpredictable world. That is the same problem AI now struggles to solve. But intelligence does not float in abstraction alone. It requires structure. It requires machines. And here too, Black brilliance was foundational and obscured. The processing power that allows modern AI to exist rests on hardware innovations shaped by Black engineers who are rarely placed at the center of the story. The leap in computing speed that made today's AI workloads possible traces back to Dr. Mark Dean, whose work on the gigahertz chip and the color PC monitor helped turn computers into the powerful visual and computational tools AI depends on. Without speed, learning collapses. Without processing power, intelligence stalls. The collaborative intelligence celebrated in modern AI systems, multiple agents learning, updating, and working simultaneously, did not emerge spontaneously either. Clarence "Skip" Ellis laid the groundwork decades earlier through operational transformation, the mathematical logic that allows multiple users to interact with the same system in real time. What is now branded as cloud intelligence and shared AI workspaces rests on principles he helped establish long before such ideas were fashionable. Even Silicon Valley's earliest foundations were shaped by black leadership that history prefers to blur. Roy Clay Sr., often called the godfather of Silicon Valley, led early software development efforts and headed the team that created Hewlett-Packard's first computer in 1966. Before the mythology of garages and lone geniuses, there were black architects building the infrastructure modern computing stands on. As Spartan